Mr. Desmond Choo.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, thank you for allowing me to join the debate. The world's drug situation remains challenging. Every country is affected by the scourge of drugs. In some countries, it has in fact worsened. Singapore is a transport hub. We can expect ourselves to be repeatedly targeted by syndicates as a transit point as well as a market for illicit drugs. The need to protect Singapore from drugs is even more critical now. While I welcome the amendments to the Misuse of Drugs Act, we must ensure first there must be no softening of Singapore's anti-drug zero-tolerance stance, and second, that a more finely calibrated rehabilitation approach will be useful in addressing our drug situation in the longer run. This is a careful balance to manage, but critical if we are to continually improve our drug situation. First, we must ensure that we continue our zero-tolerance approach to drugs. We have adopted a comprehensive and consistent approach to tackling both drug supply and demand. It has worked for us. In 2015, the number of drug abusers arrested comprised less than 0.1% of our population. Would-be and current drug offenders know that the consequences are dire, whether the offences are committed in Singapore or overseas. Yet, a no-compromise approach to drugs does not mean that we cannot and should not evolve towards better means of improving the overall drug situation. The proposed amendments are founded upon distinguishing between abusers who only consume drugs and those who concurrently commit other offences of harm to society. I would like to seek a couple of clarifications. First, what are these offences of harm to society? And second, if an offender commits drugs and unrelated criminal offences sequentially, but within a short time frame, will he still be eligible for the Enhanced Direct Supervision Order, or EDSO? The move towards greater focus on rehab recognizes that we must focus on helping the offender to kick the habit as a longer-term outcome. Yet, we must calibrate this against the potential harm to society as well. There are two important points in anti-drugs policy. One, to prevent would-be offenders from getting started on drugs. Two, to deter repeat offenders. Under the non-custodial EDSO regime, how can we position this publicly so that it is not seen as a light-touch approach for young people wanting to experiment with drugs? For the drug offenders, the term LT, or long-term imprisonment, is much feared. The punishment of long minimum imprisonment sentences and mandatory caning can deter addicts from continuing their habits. I've often heard from offenders at MPS, or even when I was a police officer, that they will tell me, no more drugs already. Next time is LT. It also protects society from potential harm from sustained demand for drugs feeding a drug market. Under the proposed amendments, a repeat offender who does not commit other criminal offences would only go through the DRC regime without LT. By removing the threat of LT from these drug offenders, would this send a conflicting signal from a zero-tolerance policy? Would MHA consider setting a cap on the number of times an offender can go for the DRC regime before LT sets in? In addition, is a time limit of 1 year in the DRC for the first-time abusers too short, or can we consider longer sentences for subsequent offences? Furthermore, we know that offenders in jail must follow rules and adhere to a rigid regime. It has been suggested in some research that for drug addicts, their isolation from society for a period of time, where they go cold turkey, might make recovery easier. Those who enter the DRC track have a whole host of other challenges to manage. They must find a job, go for urine tests, and learn how to say no to friends who ask them to do drugs again. So, are we prepared to also explore a policy whereby both imprisonment sentences and DRC work hand in hand in order to achieve a better longer-term outcome? Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, a more rehabilitative approach for drug abusers shows that we are prepared to evolve our anti-drug measures for even better outcomes. Yet, we must balance this carefully. People who are tempted to try and become addicted to drugs are robbed of the opportunity to live life to the fullest. families lose their livelihood, children suffer. Let us ensure that our top priority is still a zero-tolerance anti-drug policy. With this, I support the bill.